Hey guys, my name's Luke. I am the head of education here at Reason Fitness, and I am here with one of our members, Vivian, who has completed 1,000 workouts in her time at Reason. Actually, I think you're more than 1,000 now at this point.
Yeah.
How many years have you been coming to Reason?
Fitness age, so almost 7 years.
Okay,
Just hitting 7 years, I think.
Got it. So 1,000 workouts in 7 years. Either way, no matter how much time that is, it's a huge accomplishment to reach 1,000 classes just in general, let alone in 7 years. And so we're here to ask her a bunch of questions about, number one, consistency, number two, what it takes to build a habit. And then I would say number three, we're also gonna talk about all of the things that you kind of had to navigate through the last 7 years of working out 1,000 times. So a couple questions. First one is, how long have you been coming to Reason for in total?
Almost 7 years, yeah.
So the second question is, if someone asked you to like briefly describe yourself, how would you describe yourself and who would you say like you are?
So I have 2 young children. I work full-time. I am also a therapist.
I love it. So obviously working out 1,000 times in general is already like a huge accomplishment, but like you worked out 1,000 times, not just like on your own, but also like in a structured way where like you're coming into a gym and you're doing a structured program. And that's obviously a huge accomplishment. So maybe a question that I have is like, outside of travels and being sick and pregnant, you know, because you were obviously sick and pregnant at some point in the last 7 years.
Exactly.
What do you feel like it takes to build a habit? And then maybe this can be like a second question is, what do you think it takes to build a new habit?
That, I think, is the harder question. Like starting something new is always really daunting.
Yep.
And it's kind of like whenever you want to start something new, there's always these questions, right? What if I don't like it? What if I don't like the environment?
Totally.
What if it's hard? What if, all these what ifs.
Yeah.
And I think building a new habit, it's kind of just like, it's like committing. Like you either commit to it or you don't. It's like if you're just gonna do it, just do it. And then see how that goes, worry about the rest kind of later, because you're never going to know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So trying to answer all those questions before you even start is just not, like how are you supposed to know?
Yeah, so you're essentially saying like, if you know you want to maybe improve your lifestyle or like have a healthier lifestyle, right? It's like for you, what you're saying is being consistent starts with just being okay with starting.
Yes.
No matter what the circumstances are.
Yes. Because the worst that can happen is you lose an hour. If you really hate it, you lose an hour, right?
Right.
And then you learn something about yourself.
I love that. Now, what do you think it takes to be consistent in general?
Yeah, so I think it's a group effort, especially for someone like me who have kids, who has a family, who works full time, because there's only so much time you can allocate to yourself.
Totally.
Especially when you're a mother. Like a father, sometimes I feel like I have a little bit more flexibility in having that time to themselves. Yeah. But as a mother, you're your children's like kind of number one person to go to.
Totally.
So it's a group effort. It's putting that as a priority in your kind of life among the family, and then also making sure that it's making it known that it's something you have to get done.
Yeah. What would you say are the hardest parts about making it a priority in the family?
The guilt. I think for moms especially, it's the guilt. It's like, okay, if I do this one thing, then that means someone else has to take over something that you're not doing, right? So
you're weighing the cost. Totally.
And so you feel guilty for that piece, because I think, again, as a mother, as a woman, you're just so used to like taking care of other people. And so for that to, for you to forego just a piece of that makes it really hard, and you have to learn to I had to learn to be okay with that.
What would you say to like maybe a mother who has never worked out before, or It's been a long time since they've worked out, and they feel like they struggle with the guilt, right? Like they struggle with the guilt, but they know they want to be healthier. They know they want to start like moving. Like, what would you say to that person who struggles with the guilt or who struggles with getting started to get them started?
Yeah. And I think that's a great question, because the guilt that comes with it has to do with like sacrificing some of your time that you are going to be taking away from your family or taking away from your kids or whatever it is. But what you're doing is putting time back into that container in yourself so that you can serve others.
Totally.
So like if you're not healthy, you're not going to be able to run around with your kids. If you're tired, you're not going to be one to like want to run around with the kids and all that stuff.
Totally.
So it's about like filling your container before you're able to fill others.
So you're saying like it's like understanding or seeing it as like, okay, well, we're already low on time, so just in general, like you might as well make the time that you have better quality time by improving the quality of your life, essentially, like seeing it that way?
Yeah, that's one way to think about it. And also just like, it's like a long-term investment. Yes, it might like be hard on whoever it is that's picking up the slack when you go work out. Maybe you go work out at dinner time, right? Or maybe you go work out in the morning or whatever it is. Whoever is picking up the slack, it's a long-term investment, because then you're securing a longevity for yourself.
I see. So like,
so
you're saying like, you would say like, think about the long-term effects of what it would mean for you to start now versus like pushing it out until later and later.
Exactly. If you push it out later, the chances of you like having a harder time getting started, because you're only getting older, right? You're not getting younger.
Fair, yeah.
You're only gonna get less fit as you go on, because it's a longer time between, right? So it's that whole idea of like, well, I'm already unfit. Like, there's no point in starting.
Totally.
That starting point just gets pushed further and further, and it makes it harder and harder. So there's no better time to kind of start than now, and it's a long-term investment, because if you think about it, if you are able to kind of prioritize your health, you're setting an example for your children, you're setting an example for your family, so that you do have more energy to be around your kids. Maybe your limit was 6 hours, and maybe like working out, giving that additional hour, and makes it 7, makes it 8, so that you have more time with like with whatever it is that you enjoy doing.
So last question for you is, in your total time working out, you have been pregnant twice, right? Number one, was it a struggle to work out while you were pregnant? Did it change anything? And then number two, like if there are moms listening to this who like are struggling with working out while pregnant, or they're worried about working out while pregnant, like what would you say to them to kind of help them preserve being consistent?
Yeah, so obviously everyone is different. My pregnancies were very different. My workout routines were very different. With my first, I prioritized cardio. I just needed to get my heart rate kind of higher. And that was fine, but I was already running long distance before that. So with my second, I did a lot more weight training. Again, I was already doing that. So I wouldn't start something that you didn't start while you're pregnant. But if you plan to be pregnant, or you know you want to be pregnant sometime in the future, then starting now is gonna help you with that, just the pregnancy overall. And I will like say that I think with the weight training and the strength training, my recovery, not that it was faster or easier, every recovery is difficult. I think what made a difference is how quickly I was able to get back to how strong I felt before. So it's like the recovery time, I mean, your body is in shambles, right? But let's say it would have taken you 6 weeks, but because you were consistent throughout your pregnancy, it may have taken you only 5 weeks. Not that it's gonna make a huge difference, but I think it counts for something.
Well, did it make a huge difference for you?
It did for me. But again, I was very active
before
as well. And also I like worked out the day I delivered. So it was like one of those things where I was fortunate enough to have a very healthy pregnancy.
That's right.
So everything felt fine for me, but there are moms out there whose like ligaments are, really loose during pregnancy, or their belly feels like really big. And so there's modifications you can do. But I think one of the hardest things is like feeling really discouraged. Like you're already big, you already feel sick, like I don't want to get out. But moving actually will make you feel better.
Well, what's the most discouraging part about the switch, you feel? Like working out not pregnant versus working out pregnant? Is it like that you're comparing yourself only to when you weren't pregnant? Is that?
A little bit like, oh wow, this is winding me so much, even though this is like half of what I did before.
Okay.
At least for me, I'm very competitive to myself. Like, oh, well, last week I could do this and now I can't, kind of thing.
Right.
But I also think it's just like, as you get bigger, it's harder to move. And so it's like very discouraging because you're like, oh, I can't move. Like, what's the point? I can't even do half these movements.
Totally,
you know?
totally.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, so final thought here. If someone is, struggling to be consistent while they're pregnant, like, what would you say is the mindset that someone who's pregnant needs to have to like just continue keeping the habit or to continue being consistent? Like, what do they need to be thinking about in order for them to, just continue being consistent?
Yeah, I think two things. One, consistent can mean different things. It could mean, and the level of activity can mean different things, right? Being consistent might be coming to a CrossFit gym 5 days a week to someone who is not pregnant. But it might mean, hey, I just need to hit the gym and just do this certain amount at like, 2 to 3 RPE as opposed to like 7 to 8 RPE. Like, exert a different level of effort 3 times a week as opposed to 5 times a week. And on the other days, I'll just walk and giving yourself the grace of what your new routine looks like, as opposed to like forcing yourself into this what consistent has to mean.
So it's about redefining essentially what it means to be consistent.
Exactly. Like consistent for me is like every Monday I'll do yoga. And like that could just be a starting point. Right. And then eventually you build it up. You can't be like, oh, right out the bat, I'm gonna go 7 days a week. I'm gonna do 100 pull-ups every day, right? It's about like, okay, day one, this is the time I'm setting aside for this. And then day two, I'm way too exhausted. But then day three, I'll do this. And then eventually you get to a point where maybe you can do consecutive days. But when you set yourself so high up in the very beginning, it makes it really hard.
Got it. Love it. Thanks, Viv.
Yeah.
Stay happy, stay healthy.